Welcome to the Get Real Podcast, your high-octane boost of full-on reality therapy for personal, business, and investing success with your host, Ron Phillips, because somebody's got to tell it like it is.
Hey, everybody. Welcome back to the Get Real Podcast. Ron Phillips here with Heather Marchant, who is on remote today. Mm-hmm. If you're watching this on our YouTube channel, you can clearly see that Heather's on remote today, out chasing storms. Apparently,
I am just trying not to laugh the entire time that I'm.
We could do a weather show segment where you chase a hurricane. I think everybody would really get a kick out of that. Everybody would have to tune in while you stand in 2 foot of water and act like you're going to die.
Yeah, act like I'm going to get blown over. Well, I don't think they have hurricanes in Montana, but maybe a tornado's a brewing. You never know. So
never know. Never know. All right. Well, so Heather's on remote today. She's balancing her computer and holding her microphone. This is a sacrifice that she's doing to be on the show today, everybody.
But how much I love it. I love it.
She is here nonetheless, and we have a guest with us. And since Heather has that stellar looking microphone up to her mouth right now, I'm going to let her introduce our guest. Pretty excited to have him with us today.
Yeah, I couldn't miss this. Like, I could have said, "Hey, Ron, I can't hop on," but I was like, "No, I've got to be on this one." So, Chris is one of our sellers that we work with, and he was actually referred to us from another seller in his market in Birmingham, Alabama. And he reached out, and it was pretty easy to see right away that our core values aligned. So we were super pumped when we first got property from Chris and his team, and that everything was as he said it would be, right? Which may sound like not a big deal, but that's a pretty big deal in the industry.
In the real estate world, that's a really big deal.
Yes. So he is a rehabber. And how long have you been doing it, Chris?
Well, so I've been a builder in Birmingham for about 20 years. We've been working investment properties for about 8. And then we've been selling properties through you guys for about 2 years now, I believe. Yeah,
that sounds about right. Time goes by fast. So when I was on my RV trip last summer, stopped and met face to face, which was, I think, helpful for both of us that we're real people. And
for sure.
Yeah, that's where. Yeah. Go ahead, Ron.
Does anyone else out there listening to this think that Heather is never at home, or is it just me? I don't know that I know. Now I travel a lot. I just don't know anybody who travels as much as Heather does right now. Almost all vacationing, but
Yeah, since the RV purchase. So my husband is in the RV with all the children, and I am driving a separate vehicle. And everyone will relate to this. You can't get a rental car to save your life anywhere. So that is why I am driving separate all the way up to Glacier National Park. So it's a long haul.
So if you want to meet up with Heather, you can't, because this will air after she's gone, but it's Glacier National Park. Here's the thing that I think is really, really cool. Apart from the fact that you're a great human being, Chris, and you do a fantastic job with your properties. I love how we met you, because we are big believers in collaboration, and, there's competition out there in the space, but generally speaking, I think, Heather, if we were to count the number of people that we got into the turnkey business, into the rental property business, we should be out of business at this point.
Yeah.
And here's a person in the same market as you, Chris, refers us to you. And most people would never do something like that.
True.
I think that's really cool.
Yeah, I do as well.
And we still work with both of you guys, right? So this isn't like a replacement. It was, there's like the abundance mindset of there's enough business for everybody.
Absolutely.
Yep. I love it.
So I think when we met, when I was out there in person last summer and walking through your projects, you're very thorough in what you do. And I think that wasn't because we came along. I think that's how you've always done things, right?
Yeah, and that was kind of our start when we at least our mindset when we started, is to go ahead and upgrade, all of the functional items in the house that maintenance won't be an issue for people in theory. The long-term things like the roof, the granite, the floors, make sure we put a quality product in there so that when we deliver a product, we can expect a return buyer, hopefully down the road. And if it's not a return buyer, at least it's a good referral.
Yeah, so true. So one question I had is, what were some of the pain points you were experiencing that led Maura, the other seller, to introduce you to us?
Well, pain points in the retail market would be, I think, a third-party retail customer's false sense of expectations. I could pinpoint that on a number of things that I believe are the cause, but there were so many times that I would get texts late at night, emails and calls, and just in the middle of family time, there was no respect from anybody. And we kind of ventured out and started working with different investment firms, and we were turning a lot of property for them, but we really weren't noticing any return on that. We were just doing a lot of volume.
Yeah.
So again, just working myself to death for somebody else. And I knew there was a better way. I knew there had to be a better solution. It just took a minute to figure it out.
Yeah. Did you have any issues with retail buyers with cancellations and things like that? Or not?
No,
really?
not necessarily, because we really didn't sell any property until we were introduced to you guys.
Oh, got it. Okay. So I guess that leads to my next question really well. How did it change your business in working with us?
Oh, heavens, being able to scale down the volume that we were doing, being able to actually spend time with my family and my kids and be at different events, so many different ways. I don't think I could really begin to name. But, we were able to see a lot more focus on the business itself instead of just running around town, putting out fires of people that needed this, needed that, got to have this. Here comes a deadline, before you know it, the end of the week's here, and then you're spending your weekend trying to play catch up.
Gotcha.
That's one of the things in business. I think that everybody who looks from the outside looking in, they see a successful man or woman, right? And they're just doing great. Everything looks great. And what they don't see is that, I would think 75 to 80% of the time, that entrepreneur or business owner is doing exactly what you just said. They're running themselves to death. And the sad thing is they think that they have to do that to be able to make things work.
Yes.
And what you just said, I think is, we've said this on the show before, Heather, but I think it bears repeating, right? Here's a prime example of that, is that you don't have to do that. And a follow-up question, I think, Chris, is, since you don't have to do that, how was the transition in, because before you obviously thought you had to do that. What was the transition like learning that you didn't have to do that? Was it a strange transition?
Well, it was, and it was a little bit scary to make that transition. So ultimately we wound up tapering into selling property with you guys and tapering out of working retail jobs. So what we're trying to do now is just go full throttle with our property sales and taper everything else out, because we've seen such a change in the day-to-day and week-to-week life.
So for the people listening, can you clarify what you mean by retail sales versus working with us?
Well, and retail sales is not a good description. Retail remodeling is a better description of what we were doing. When I say retail customers, we were working for other people fixing their homes.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, man. I could see that being a problem for sure.
Absolutely.
Oh yeah. Okay. That even makes it. Yeah. Oh wow.
Well, just the calls makes a lot more sense right now too. Yeah.
Yeah. And the change orders. And I mean, I can picture it now, the hell that you were living. I mean, yeah.
Well, and it's one thing if you're doing it for one particular customer, but when you're trying to run 10 or 12 or 14 projects at a time, you can imagine the scale of calls and emails and texts, and you cannot realistically handle all of that. And so it just turns into a downhill spiral when well, you didn't get my text about this color. Oh, I wanted to change the tile to this. Oh, hey, I bought this, but I don't really know if I like it. And it was just we were just spinning our wheels is the best way to say it.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And that makes a lot of sense with what questions you asked me. Because I remember you grilling me pretty hard on like, this is maintainable, right? Like we can keep doing it and how many, and I don't want to overextend myself and have too many projects going. Like that, all those questions you asked me at the front make a lot more sense given the context, right? And where you were, where you'd been, I guess.
Well,
right?
and I was extremely fearful and cautious to get into this. And I think you and I had that exact discussion that I wanted to do one or two and kind of see how things went. And then we would gradually begin to scale up and see where it went from there. And, we've gone from that one or two house at a time model to, we have 14 right now. I think 8 of them are under contract and 6 are in construction.
Wow. So it's changed your whole core business, right? You're doing different, the same construction type of work, but the way the business is run. Okay.
Absolutely. And today is a perfect example. My youngest son had to go to camp at 11 o'clock. So in the middle of the day on a Wednesday, my wife was off work. I was able to go pick him up, drove into camp, took him to lunch, checked him in, and came straight back here and got ready for this.
Yeah.
So I would not be afforded that luxury, 8 years ago, whatever the time frame was when our focus was in a different position.
Yeah, that makes so much sense. And time with your family, it's so hard because as a business owner, you can say how much money you make, but man, there's a whole chunk of it that is, if you can spend more time with if I can spend more time with my family, what's that worth to me? Right.
Absolutely. And as we get a little older and age more, you realize how precious life is and how short the moments are that you have. So, yeah. I try to cherish every minute we have.
And we kind of have to, because literally an hour ago, I just got off the phone with one of our suppliers who literally got hit by, we joke about getting hit by a bus, getting hit by a car and what happens to our businesses when that happens. He literally did.
Yeah.
He literally got run over by a car and he was, I think he was in a coma for a while. And it was like touch and go.
Yeah.
You never know when that, because, we all think we're invincible until we're not. Right. Yep. And you don't get the time back. I remember times, and I've talked about them on the show, where I've missed life, and you don't get that back. And to be able to run a business that's scalable, like you're talking about. The other business was very difficult to scale and have any time. This is a little bit more predictable because you know what you're going to put in the house. It's easier to run the crews. That's what I'm gathering from you, is that this is predictable. It's more like a conveyor belt.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And we have an exclusive set of subs that, we continuously feed properties to. Yep. So when we buy a new property, we send it to the electrician, the plumber, the HVAC guy, the roofer, the framer, everybody that needs to have their hands on that property. We'll meet over there one time, go through it, and everybody knows what their role is and what their order is supposed to be.
Yep.
And so it's just changed the production. And I think one other thing to mention too is you're not having to work around homeowners' schedules. You're not having to worry about little Billy being home from school and he's sick, so I need you to take off 2 days and then come back on Thursday, because we're working in vacant houses. So these people can go at 6 o'clock in the morning, get their job done, and then they're on to the rest of their day.
Yeah. I didn't even think about that, Chris, but your team, your team's life will have had some kind of shift in working with us, your crew, and, that they have that flexibility. That's pretty cool. I didn't even think about that.
Yeah. And it's the difference in demand from, again, the retail customers to what we're doing now. I think there's just such a drastic difference in like a laid back feeling, and everybody's happy. Nobody's screaming at each other on a job site because this got done wrong. And, sure, there's mistakes, there's problems, things happen. We uncover stuff that we didn't expect, but it's part of it. We just have to deal with it.
Yeah. Yeah, that's true. So what would you say has been of all the things we've mentioned, maybe if you could wrap it up into one thing that has made the biggest impact in working with us versus doing retail construction?
I think just the flexibility in schedule in my personal life, you know, and again, having been introduced to you guys, every single person that I've worked with on your team, it's just like being with another family member. You know, you and I, when we talked the first day, I mean, it was just like we hit it right then.
Yeah.
And every single person, it feels to me is the same exact way. You know, and even Ron, when I text you out of the blue, I mean, you answered my text right away, not knowing exactly who I was, answered my call, and that was just extremely special to me.
Yeah, I mean, we've been doing business with I mean, the same builders and some of the same rehab people since like 2005.
Yeah.
So we love long-term, you know, profitable and loyal relationships. And we love to build those. You know, not everybody obviously works out, but we usually choose to work with people who work out, and they work out long term. We do a lot of business with the people, and that works out to be a really cool thing for our clients. And I think sometimes, you know, like you drilled us pretty hard, or Heather, again, I wasn't there, drilled Heather pretty hard with questions about how this thing works. Is very similar for our clients, because you know, the real estate industry doesn't have the best name, Chris. You know, there's a whole bunch of people out there that are, you know, scamming people and doing all kinds of nasty things. And so people, sometimes they come to us and that's the lens they're looking through. And so what they see is, you know, Chris is making a fortune. I'm sure RP Capital's making some dough too, and I'm getting screwed. That's because, you know, sometimes they'll find a house online and they'll say, man, that house sold for like 40,000. You guys are selling it for 100. What the heck? That's $60,000 of profit. And I think sometimes people don't, A, they don't understand. And I think B, sometimes people don't appreciate the amount of effort that is involved in transforming one of these junker houses that you're buying into something that is what you described at the beginning of our conversation. Yeah. It's not the easiest thing in the world.
No.
And I'll take it one step further too. Not only is there a lot of work that goes into transforming that house from its current state to a finished product that is a quality product somebody can be proud of, we probably look at 25 to 30 houses before we get to that one property that actually fits the model.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. And then put all that work in there, right? And I think the other thing too that people overlook is that we want you to be profitable so that you can keep cranking out houses. You know, our company has to be profitable so that we can continue to educate people. And we still want to have a really solid, nice product that cash flows and does really well for our clients. Everybody has to win. It can't be a win-lose. And for whatever reason, I don't know what book these guys are reading, but people think that you're supposed to do win-lose on negotiations. I'm not sure how that works out, but
yeah.
Anyway, that's not how we do business.
Well, I think it's telling that we had a seller come to us that brought properties with that equity play, right? You buy it unrehabbed, you hire a rehabber, you rent it out, you refinance, right? It's just perfect model that all of our clients talked about for years, right? That just what Ron mentioned, hey, the house down the street, you know, I could pick that one up. And it's amazing how few clients have actually signed a contract on that stuff. Because I go through it. That's how I've always worked with clients is, well, this is all the downside. I want to make sure you know up front what could go wrong. and you have unexpected rehab costs, right? So many different things can go wrong. You can have someone break into the house, steal stuff because no one's living in it. And it's amazing how they all kind of shut up at that point. Like, oh, yeah, I don't know about that. So
now we'll let Chris do it.
Exactly. Exactly. So I have a couple of harder questions maybe, but what has been maybe the hardest part about working with us? Maybe downsides or things like that?
I think one of the most challenging things for us is the fact that you have a network of buyers that are scattered across, you know, presumably the United States and the world. I don't really know exactly where they all are, but, you know, one of the most challenging points for me is going to a closing and expecting that even though we're doing a mail away, we should receive funding in a day or two. And a lot of times we see the buyer forgot to sign a document, buyer forgot to send their wire, lender forgot to send the approval docs, so we're 4 or 5 days post closing. And the challenging part for that is we typically roll those funds into the purchase of another house.
Yep.
So then I'm delaying the purchase of the house that I've already got on schedule to close as well. Yeah. So that probably to me is the biggest pain point that I have to try to overcome.
Yeah. And I think for us too, we're always on our end trying to make it easier for everybody. And I think you're right, because the clients we work with have jobs, right? So sometimes they're like, well, I'm glad everyone's ready to close on Thursday, but I can't close on Thursday. I have a business trip or whatever. And so that is different than someone buying a primary residence. They're like counting down the days with their paper chain, right?
Right.
Like super excited to close, where our clients, while they're excited, it's just different. So that does make sense. Yeah. And I can see that.
One of the things you talked about is one of the reasons why we, partnered up with the lending institution that we did, which not everybody uses that lender, but, I think people think that we did that, so that we can make all this huge amount of money, which it really doesn't, but it does allow us to have a little bit of pull on these closing conditions, like you talked about, right? Like the lender has this closing condition. Well, because we have a little more control over there, where we can close with that funding condition in place and other lenders can't. And I think that sometimes, I think everybody listening to this who has bought investment property just got a glimpse into your world and the world of all the other people that we work with, and why it matters. 1 day matters. 2 days matter. 5 days is like living in hell for you, right? Because you can't, people think money next week is the same as money today. And it's just not. And one of the most frustrating things for me in business has been trying to educate everybody in the company, which, everybody now understands that, but I've had people in my company in the past who just did not get it. I'm like, guys, it doesn't. Yes, we have the same amount of money on the books, but if it's not in the bank account today, it's not the same as next week. It's just not the same.
It's not usable. It's not accessible. And even though I know it's coming at some point in time, that doesn't help the here and now.
Nope. And it's less money next week than it is today. And I don't know why I can't get that concept through to people. It's less. And why is it less? Because you would have bought a house, you'd have been a week into it, and the velocity of that money is very important to a business owner. And so everybody out there listening, who's getting ready to close a deal or is thinking about buying a deal, listen, because this is really important. It slows down the future purchases for anyone else. And it slows down Chris's money. It slows down RP Capital's money. And what we do with that money is reinvest the money to make more product for everybody.
Yep.
I think everybody thinks we just take all of it off the table all the time. It's like no big deal because it's just Ron's money. It's just Chris's money. That's not the way it works. We're constantly reinvesting that money to grow the company and to be able to produce more and do more good. And we can't do that if our money's tied up in some stupid closing condition.
Yeah, so true.
And one of the things that I try to stress to our team, that even though it may be uncontrollable, 1 or 2 days is not that big of a deal. But if we're able to turn a house from disarray to a finished product in 4 weeks, those 2 days make a lot of difference. If you do that 10 times, that's an entire another project that somebody's not getting, somebody's missing out on. We can't buy it because every little step adds up to where we just can't get there.
Yeah. And not only that, but those 2 days, you still have holding costs, right? That's another thing that people don't realize. And if it's two days every one, like you said, there's 10 deals, that's 20 days of additional holding costs. That's an entire project of holding costs. And people who aren't in business and people who don't run businesses don't understand that. And actually, a lot of people in business don't understand that concept either. It's a very difficult concept to understand. Hopefully that gives people a glimpse into what the velocity of money really is all about and why it's so critically important.
Yeah, that's true. A couple of things that I think are important to note too is that we really do demand quite a bit of the people that we work with. We demand quite a bit of you, Chris. And I agree that I do feel like at the same breath, we are on a team, right? We both have the same goal, and we both, I want you to be successful. I know you want us to be successful, right? So it makes our relationship pretty unique. But a couple of things that we demand of you are properties in good neighborhoods, right? You can't just go buy whatever you feel like and rehab it. Making the repairs, if they come up on the inspection report, all the appliances are in there. It's ready for a tenant. You have window coverings and a garage door opener, typically, if there's a garage. And we set the bar high. So the clients, though, I have a lot of clients that come to me and they say, hey, that seller I worked with last time, I want to work with him again, right? Because they'll notice that quality of construction and readiness to make repairs. And you've definitely been great to work with in that aspect. So it's, repeat business, even though they don't know your name most of the time. They're like, hey, that guy.
And I'm a firm believer that if you put a quality product out, you don't have to promote it. You don't have to sell yourself, because exactly what you said, somebody's going to come back and they say, wow, this thing worked exactly like I expected it to. Yeah. Let's do another one.
Exactly.
And, hey, my cousin's ready to do one as well. Let's do another one.
Yes.
So I get it.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's the other thing I think too, when you were talking about transferring from retail that, hit me was, those people may remodel their kitchen, but they're not going to remodel it again for a while, right? But our people, they don't quit buying. They just keep buying. And, some of them buy multiple properties in the first, second year, and then continue to go on to buy. And we have people who bought quite a bit of property from us. And that's the other thing that makes this thing so scalable is that, those people, if we treat them right, they just continue to buy. And that makes it so we don't have to constantly go out there, try to look for, we do anyway, because we're trying to scale our businesses, but you don't have to constantly go out there, fight for the business in a closed market.
Mm-hmm. That's right. A couple other things that we require of you is you pay for the home inspection. We choose the inspector, but you foot the bill. You place a tenant prior to closing. Well, the property manager places the tenant, but you often delay closing until we have the tenant in there. And so those are things that, you could for an initial conversations sometimes with people that want to work with us, kind of, they go, oh man, like that's a long list of expectations that you have of me. But why, in your experience, I guess, why has it been worth it to you with all the additional expectations that maybe you didn't have before?
Well, so back to our initial conversation when we were asking a bunch of questions and trying to figure out if we were going to be able to make this work, I took all of those individual items and I built a model that says, okay, if we're going to buy a property and we're going to put this amount of money into it, the money's going to cost us this, we can sell it for this amount. Here's our fixed cost on every project. And every house we go through to this day gets that same exact approach. And if it doesn't fit the model, we have to pass.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. You just know the numbers.
It's the cost of doing business. It's a fixed cost that doesn't change. It gives the buyer peace of mind. And again, you brushed on unforeseens. Like sometimes we run into stuff that we can't control and it blows our model completely out of the water. But we're still on the hook to deliver a quality product. So, sometimes we win, sometimes we lose. We try to minimize our losses, but
yeah. But I think one thing that I've enjoyed in our relationship working with you is that I do feel like it's been almost from day one, a team mentality, right? That if on one project we know that you lost your shirt, then we try to work with you, right? Try to help you out on other deals, try to make it right the best we can. because again, same thing Ron said. I mean, it's all about the long-term relationship, helping people, but our what is it? Our core focus, Ron, is through service, we build people, and people include people we work with that sell property. So it's
we love watching people and companies grow. It's one of the favorite things we do. I mean, even internally in our company, we just had quarterly meetings, and it was fun to hear everybody want to learn more and want to grow. And, we love our partners to be growing. And we like to be a small part of that. And so it has been a blast working with you and watching you make the transition. We haven't spoken a ton, but I get updates from Heather quite frequently about what's going on. And I appreciate it, man. It's been great. It's been great working with you and watching the numbers grow and the amount of really crazy happy clients grow. That part's just a lot of fun for us.
Well, I appreciate that. Thank you very much. And the same thing on my side. I have learned a different approach to looking at real estate by working with your model. This pro forma situation makes so much sense to me, and I never would have been able to put that together in my head. But when I'm looking at it from the outside in, not only do I want to be on the service side of providing these houses, I want to buy some on my own. The long-term approach makes a lot of sense.
Yeah. We have that.
It does. We have another seller who we've had on the show, and he's a builder, and I remember distinctly sitting in his office, and he's like, I just don't understand why anybody's buying these. This doesn't make any sense. And then I showed it to him, and I think he kind of got it a little bit. And then over time, he didn't really say much. And I don't remember how many years went by. And then I was in his office again, and he turned around to his sheet, and he showed me, he goes, I pulled these numbers. He had like 25 or 30 houses on there. And he said, these are, I just kept all these ones that I built, and look at the numbers. He was so happy. He's like, look at the return on these houses. Yep. He goes, I get it, Ron, I get it. And I was like, yeah, that's awesome. So you definitely should. Yes. You definitely should keep some of your product, man, for sure.
We're working to that position now.
Yep. Yeah. I mean, it is a game changer when you can stack this up with time. There's a great book I'm reading right now that talks about what you just said before. Sometimes you win, sometimes you lose. You only have to be right 50% of the time, because some of the wins are really big wins, right? And he said the long term, time fixes the other 50%. So if you're in it for the long game and you play long enough, you just win the game. That's just the way it is. It's called The Psychology of Money. It's a fantastic book. And the first half of it is a fantastic book. I'll tell you about the rest of it, everybody, after I'm done. But the book kind of changes your perspective about money and about time and the time value of money and all that good stuff. Anyways, great book.
That is great cool. Book. Last question. So if you met someone maybe in your same sphere, would you recommend working with RP Capital, or maybe just investors in general in your line of work?
Investors in general, no, because they're extremely demanding. And a lot of times the investors don't understand what we've been talking about, what all goes into even just delivering a quality product with everybody's schedule. Mm-hmm. So I have a hard time recommending somebody go work with, and I'll use a hedge fund as an investor example. That to me is a challenging path. I mean, I could not feel more blessed after being introduced to you guys and our paths crossing, because it's totally changed the way I live and the way that I do business. And, I would recommend anybody that's interested in this market, talk to you guys, ask the questions. It takes a little bit of time to get started. It takes a little bit of capital to get started. But once you're through that front end of it, it's so exciting. And I love coming to work because it's fun and everybody on our team's having fun. It's totally changed the dynamic of our week to week life.
All the feels, Chris. Wow.
Yeah,
That's awesome.
That's one of our core values, fun. We love that one. And if you're not having fun, man, there's something wrong. So I'm glad, man. That makes us really happy. Everybody likes to do a lot of good business, right? But it's a whole other level when you can do a whole lot of really good business, still have some great family time, and love what you do. At our office, we have a saying: "We love Mondays," and that's because we all love what we do. Mm-hmm. Sometimes it's a slog, man, but we love what we do. It's fun. We really appreciate you sharing so much.
Absolutely. Thank you guys again for letting me come on today.
Chris Toenes, everybody, and from the great state of Alabama. Mm-hmm. You guys haven't been there, you should go down there and check it out.
It's pretty.
I'll never forget my trip to Birmingham, my first trip to Birmingham. I got down there, and I think I don't remember who I called on the team. I said, they're building brand new houses down here with no garages.
No.
And I'm like, I asked the builder, I'm like, so do people not care about garages? He goes, well, he kind of looked at me funny, like, well, it's an entry-level house, Ron. And I'm like, yeah, I know, but where I come from, entry-level houses have garages. He goes, well, down here, a carport's great. And no crap, they were selling them like mad. They were selling them down there. It's a great place.
All about
lots of history down there.
Yeah, that's true.
Lots of history down there. Very cool place. All right, buddy. Hey, really appreciate you. Thanks for coming on the show. Thank you for sharing so much, and thanks for being such a great partner.
Absolutely, Ron. Thank you, guys. Heather, talk to you soon.
Yeah, you're the best, Chris.
All right, everybody, get out there, make something happen this week.
This has been the Get Real Podcast. To subscribe and for more information, including a list of all episodes, go to getrealestatesuccess.com.